I want to just say a few introductory words, welcome you to the Congress and outline what we're going to be discussing over the next 2 days, and then I'll move straight into the agenda for the day. First thing was, to, as I said, to welcome you all here to the Congress and to thank IQPC and the FPSO network for again putting together a great program over the next 2 days and pulling together such a great audience as well. Before we move into the agenda, just a quick note on safety. There are no planned fire drills for today, so if the fire alarm does go off, you can see the exits here on my left, your right. These exits take you through the back of the hotel. There's an assembly point at the front of the hotel on Lily Road, and the organizers will take a head count there. So, as I said, no planned drills, so if the alarms do go off, then please evacuate through those exits. While I was thinking about the agenda and looking through the agenda, I was reflecting on where we are in the market and looking at some of the narrative around the current market situation. I'll leave a detailed analysis of the market to Audun Martinsen, who's going to talk next about the market in more detail. But just a few observations about what I hear in terms of the narrative as the market starts to slowly improve. And the key words seem to be cautious optimism. This is from the Ernst & Young review of the UK sector, which came out recently in January. Cautious optimism seems to be the sort of key note, but there are obviously concerns. There are a degree of reticence. The reason for the sort of caution is that capital rationing and cost control will remain sort of key features as we go forward over the next few years. And there's still some fundamental uncertainty about where oil price is going to go. Again, I hear different stories about what oil price is going to do over the next few years. And again, I'll leave that to Audun to go into a lot more detail. But I was very taken by this piece that came from Saudi Aramco, which looked at the amount of project work and potential new production that's been cancelled or postponed over the last few years since the oil price dropped. The research that's cited quotes about $1 trillion worth of investments that's been cancelled or deferred. And the sense is that that's going to have an impact. And the impact that they say that will have is that there's some 20 million barrels of new production that's going to be needed to meet both the upturn in growth that we're seeing with the improvement in global economy, but also the natural decline of fields that have been in production for some time. So again, you can hear different narratives, but the one that I hear most often is along these lines and along the lines of cautious optimism. I also was looking as I was going through what's been published over the last 6-12 months and looking for, well, where's the bottom? Is there still increasing concern that shale oil will drag us back down to something lower? And again, this came from Bank of Montreal, just looking at, again, the year going forward. And their sense is that they have a stronger sense that the risk of going below $50 is receding now because of the compliance from OPEC and the compliance from Russia, and indeed the general sort of improvement in demand side because of the improvements in the global economy. So those are some of the things that I think underpin this mood of cautious optimism. So very quickly moving on to what are we going to spend the next 2 days talking about? What are the themes that we're going to spend time discussing over the next 2 days? And I took these from Jamie's notes as she was building the agenda, and worth just recapping and summarizing what they are. They're about streamlining processes, looking at ways in which we can do things better, ways we can approach projects and hopefully deliver better outcomes, ways in which we can transform operations, thinking not just about the CapEx side of projects, but thinking about the OpEx side. How do we improve operations, make them safer, make them more cost effective? We're going to spend some time over the next 2 days talking about some of the financing issues for projects in this sector, because financing, I think, remains a challenge for some people in some projects. So we'll spend some time looking at financing bottlenecks and asking the question, how can we overcome some of those bottlenecks? We'll also look at other ways to redefine the way we do execution of projects. Again, are there better models that we can implement? Are there better ways that we can deliver more robust projects? And then finally, ways in which we can improve value over the whole life cycle. And as I was looking at these and I was putting together these slides, I was thinking, what does that mean to me personally? What are the things that says to me personally? And I think it really boils down to just one thing and perhaps three aspects of one area, which is innovation. It's something this industry has been really good at, this sector's been really good at over the last 20 or 30 years. And I think it means for me innovation in three key areas. It's about innovation in terms of technology, it's about innovation in terms of the processes we use to deliver projects, and it's about innovation in the contract models that we put together in order to make these projects work. So again, just from a personal perspective, what does innovation really mean for me? And I wanted to give an example of something we're doing at the moment. We've been working for about 2 years looking at what facilities might look like in the future with support, I have to say, from various oil companies, players in the supply chain, and indeed the Oil and Gas Technology Centre here in the UK. And we've spent time thinking about what facilities will look like in the future. So some of this is somewhere away. One of my clients likened this to, we're the people at the Geneva Motor Show who put together these cars that never actually get to the production line, but perhaps 90% of what we do gets onto the production line at some stage. So we're looking at what might the facility of the future look like. And it's really sort of four key areas that we're looking at possible changes. We're looking at process intensification. We're looking at ways in which we can either eliminate systems or simplify systems and end up with more being processed with less equipment. We're also looking at the digitally enabled offshore installation. What does it mean when we digitally enable equipment and systems? How can we use that data, and how can we build machine learning systems, decision support systems, and condition-based monitoring and maintenance around those systems? We want to also spend time focusing on OpEx. Certainly the last 40 years or so that I've spent in the oil industry, I would say that OpEx tends to be the poor relation right up until the time that you actually start producing. But during the CapEx phase, we probably spend more time on CapEx and a little bit less time than we should on thinking about on OpEx issues. So one of the areas we're looking at is ways in which we can have a major focus on OpEx and particularly think about ways in which we can de-man facilities. And that leads you eventually, inevitably, to what can we do with unmanned facilities. And then finally, looking at ways in which we can improve capital efficiency, looking at ways in which we can take a more standardized approach and what I would refer to as a more rectangular approach to projects. And by rectangular, I mean rather than building facilities which work at a particular level for a very short period of time and then work at a level much below that for the remainder of their life, how can we look at projects which become a little bit more rectangular rather than triangular? So those are some of the things that we've been working on and some of the things that, I guess, for us, add up to this process of innovation. And as well as innovating within our own industry, there are things that we can learn from other industries. There are a number of things here, particularly around the digitally enabled facilities, around de-manning, that we can learn from other industries. A lot of the possible ways in which we can de-man and start to do more work from off the facility comes to us from some of the innovations that we've seen in the wind industry. There's a lot being done in a range of different industries, not least of which is the automotive industry, in terms of condition-based monitoring and maintenance. So there are various things we can learn from other industries as well as innovating at home. And I picked just one slide because as a naval architect, I spend time not only in the oil and gas industry, but intersecting with other marine sectors. And I was very taken by this definition from Lloyd's Register about cyber-enabled ships. In fact, I was looking for something equivalent in the oil and gas industry. I haven't found anything. I have to put my hand up and say I haven't found anything in the oil industry where the narrative is quite as mature as this. If anybody knows of anything in the oil and gas industry that is as mature as this, then please come and see me afterwards. But my sense is that as an industry, perhaps we haven't got our thinking quite as far as the shipping industry has in terms of unmanned and autonomous ships. And you can see the way they're thinking, which is obviously right at the bottom, there's no autonomous function whatsoever. We're talking about starting with on-ship decision support, we're moving on to off-ship decision support, so decision support which is done in a control room somewhere remotely. I noticed that some of the vessels that are operating as ferries, they're now trialing with the engine room on an onshore fixed location, so all the maintenance is being planned onshore, so when they do vessel turnarounds for ferries, they have a crew going on and doing maintenance. We've seen exactly the same thing in the rail industry, where for some of the more advanced systems in the rail industry, they're doing maintenance at the end of each journey, but they're planning the maintenance as the train is in transit. Then we move from systems where human beings are actually in the loop, they're in the system which actually makes things happen, to a stage where we move humans out of the loop and have humans on the loop. So the humans are supervising what's going on, and then we move to fully autonomous, rarely supervised to fully autonomous, unsupervised vessels. Now, this is what's happening in the shipping industry, and there's quite a debate going on about how far we can go, how far the regulations will allow us to go, and so forth. But I throw this up because I think it's a challenge for us as an industry to say, other industries are doing this, how are we going to address some of these similar issues? So, just a little bit of food for thought. I guess my main point here is that we can't just sit around and wait for the rising tide of commodity prices to rescue us again. I found these pictures of the ships beached on the beach in shallow water. We can't just wait for oil prices to go back up again and get us back to where we would like to be. I think we have to go back and look at ways to innovate. We have to remain competitive with other sources of oil and gas production, and in order to do that, then we need to continue to innovate. As I said, innovate within technology, look at the way we deliver and operate these facilities, and look at the contracting arrangements and models that we utilize to deliver these projects. So that, for me, is perhaps some of the things that I'd like to stimulate and discuss over the next 2 days. So, just say thank you all for coming. I hope we have a wonderful 2 days discussing some of these things. Hope you all enjoy the Congress, and I'll now move on and introduce today's first speaker.